Hello everyone, welcome to the ESS BIZTOOLS Business Advisory Podcast for this week. Today I'm joined by Andrew Geddes, the well-known Australian accounting industry expert. Andrew was one of the joint founders of the Financial Management Research Centre at the University of New England, which was the trailblazer for a whole range of management accounting initiatives, not only for accountancy, but also legal and a number of other industries, which Andrew might comment on when he starts talking to us. Incidentally, Andrew, I spoke to someone yesterday who didn't really know the history of FMRC and that whole area, and I think that's disappointing. I think accountants should understand what FMRC did for the scene today. And a lot of the things you were talking about 35, 40 years ago still haven't been properly implemented, have they? And that's one of the things obviously we're going to talk about today. So welcome, Andrew. And
thank you, Peter.
I'd like to invite you to comment on the matters that you have listed for discussion today, which starts with trends in our market.
Yes, we're looking at changing from compliance dominance for accountants in practice to business advisory services. So what's happening out there? People are talking about compliance work becoming simpler and being systematized with robotics, AI, digitization, etc. There's been a lot of talk about this for a long time, but I think it's happening. Hence, it's suggested that compliance production will become simpler. If the government keeps changing legislation, of course, there's an advisory piece around it that won't get simpler and will grow. SME clients have got to be able to cope with the changing market. And I think the major influence at the moment is the inability to get experienced accountants. The labour market's very tight and they're saying we want to do interesting work, even the young ones. So that's leading to a situation where a lot of smaller firms, the accountants in them are working long hours. And I guess that leads to a couple of questions. Are you working too many hours? Are you caught in a compliance trap? Are your smaller clients unwilling to pay more? Can you not get experienced people? So is this real or is it your own making? I want you to keep these questions in mind as we go through, but more importantly, what do you want to do with your working life? So if you're not enjoying your profession at the moment, I think there are things you can do and changes you can make to sort that out, because a number of my clients are doing just that. Let's share that with you. So we'll start with asking ourselves, if you're going to go into business advisory work, what are you actually going to advise on? I think a natural extension of what a compliance accountant does is to help clients improve their bookkeeping and their own internal accounting and reporting, then prepare budgets, and then help them interpret them by participating in a monthly meeting, maybe even using some of the cloud-based programs that will allow you to create some dashboard reporting. On top of that, you might be able to do business valuation. Some of the offerings such as B-Star offers a systemized method of doing this, helping clients identify the 1, 2, or 3 areas in their business they need to improve each quarter and involving their team, helping them set up a project group to work on that. Funding, be it debt funding or capital raising, government grants, which, Peter, you offer extensive information about that through the ESS BIZTOOLS offering.
That's right, Andrew. And just if I can just bring you up to date, what's happened there in the federal budget on Tuesday night, very little was said about grants. But in the material that was also released by the Treasurer, the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant, which has been very popular and has been in existence for the last 11 or 12 years, has been withdrawn. So it wasn't on the websites on Wednesday morning. The government has announced that it's going to be replaced by the Industry Growth Program later in 2023. I think it's disappointing that they didn't have the new program ready. But my assistant pointed out to me, well, they've probably got to get the budget passed first before they can really announce the details of the next one. And I think she's right. So I was jumping the gun a bit there. But there's some other grants that have also closed, but hopefully they're going to be reissued under the new banner.
Yep.
And that includes Innovation Connection and the very popular Business Growth Grant, which was, I think, a great grant for a tradie type business to get $20,000 from the government. Obviously, they had to match it, so they put $20,000 in, and they could get business plans or any sort of analysis done. It might have been an engineering job they needed done on their business or whatever. It wasn't always for accountants to do, of course. But in my observations, the accountants could secure about 50% of that work that come out of that if you were alert to what your clients were doing. It might have been just sorting out their key performance indicators. It might have been doing a proper analysis on the information out of benchmarking.com for .au for argument's sake, and lining that up against how the client's performing. The good news, though, is the research and development grant is untouched at this stage. Now, Andrew, I was mentioning to you before we started that there was an article released last week that indicated that for the research and development claimants in 2021-22, those who are in the category of potential refunds, so that's companies with turnovers under $20 million, who, if they're trading at a loss, can get a cash payment up to the calculated research and development tax offset amount. The total amount paid by those companies for research and development was $3.2 billion.
It's a lot of money.
$3.2 billion. Yet, you know, accountant after accountant that I speak to
nothing about it.
Knows nothing about research and development. And in fact, I was quite excited yesterday. I spoke to an accountant in Sydney who on his website lists that he consults on research and development and export market development grant. I congratulated him. I had to talk to him and congratulate him. And he tells me he's doing work for other accountants who refer clients to him. And he said, for some reason, they don't feel inclined to research it. So, Andrew, I'd just like to fix some misapprehension I think a lot of our colleagues have got. You don't have to be an engineer or a scientist to advise your clients on research and development. Your role, and we've produced the full system package within ESS BIZTOOLS, it's a matter of just ticking the boxes. The client's got to ascertain whether he's done the proper research as to whether there's any prior art or anyone's already registered that concept. Your role, though, as the accountant is to make sure they've implemented the systems. Check off the checklist and then get it lodged in time with Oz Industry and then the tax return. So R&D is still there, as is the Export Market Development Grant, which is only available for for businesses, it's any type of entity. I nearly said it wrong then. Any type of entity with turnovers under $20 million. So that's still in play, and it's very important for a lot of SME clients.
Yes. So it's good that the grants are still there, and it's interesting that accountant who's specialised in them is now busy providing that advice to other accountants. So again, out of your compliance group of clients, you might identify half a dozen that you can think about. Could we start offering some business advisory services based on planning, budgeting, reporting? So that's really what we're suggesting. You could then set up an advisory board, maybe some business improvement project groups in your client, and that can be done via Teams or Zoom. Now, Peter, it does work because I've got 8 clients and I earn $300,000 a year plus working with them doing just this. That's business advisory work. Now, you've got it sitting there in your client base if you wish. So really it starts with identifying some clients who may be receptive to this involvement and then sitting down and having a conversation with them around this set of questions. You know, how's your business going? Are you happy with profit, cash and margins? Have you had leave? What are the consequences in terms of tax planning, creating wealth outside the business, protecting the family and your assets, and then looking at succession, estate and other needs. So it's looking at, in your current list of clients, you might have 50 or 100 or 500. The other day we listed all the clients out and the fees we got from them, and the fees based on the time taken to do the work, the yields or the margins, and looked at that list, and really a lot of the smaller CD clients would be better off probably selling them to a younger accountant just starting and focusing on the more receptive clients. So if you want to move into business advisory and you're stuck in a trap because you're too busy, maybe you've got to learn to say no. That's the first mindset change you've got to go through. Now, you've got to ask yourself who's going to be able to afford to pay you 10, 20 grand a year or more. If a client wants help with a strategic review, planning, budgeting, and management meetings and an advisory board role, again, I go back to the comment that of your list of clients, who might be receptive to such a conversation, and that's who you should target and go and sit down and see what they've got to say. Now, really, you've got to ask yourself, do I want to stick with compliance, lots of small clients, and difficulty recruiting experienced team members, or do I want to change the role I play at work and the sort of work that I do? Things aren't going to change unless you, the practitioner, think carefully and decide, yes, I'm going to take some actions to attempt to do this type of work, and I'm happy to let some of my compliance clients go if necessary to create the capacity to do so. Now, I've got two firms that are doing this and have been doing it for a number of years now. The first one's a medium-sized firm, let's say 5 partners, 40 team members. They've set up a senior leadership team. So there's a group of 12 of them, and they've all decided to specialise in a different sector of business advisory work, Peter. One of them is very skilled at facilitating strategic planning. Another one does government grants. A couple of them have looked at utilising various budgeting tools. Some of the scenario. What's the brand name of the one that you've been looking at?
Plan Guru.
Plan Guru, that sort of thing. Some of them have decided to specialise in certain industry sectors. So this firm's a regional firm. It's a wealthy and successful agricultural area. A number of their clients are vertically integrating their businesses, growing. They might have livestock, but they might also be growing grains and feed and lucerne and things like that. And then they're probably also transporting, and they've got administration. So they might have 5 or 6 profit centres in a $30 million turnover agricultural business. So what we've done in this firm is people with different interests have said, I'm going to be responsible for that. What we then do is all of the senior leadership team members have a client list, and as they identify needs with their clients, they refer them to their colleagues. So we're team servicing our clients. It's not a situation where people are in bunkers and these are my clients and I'll look after them and you keep away. They've also brought in a policy of no clients below $5,000 because they want to have a deeper involvement with their better clients. They sold off their smaller clients to a couple of new younger accountants and used the capital to invest in developing skills and buying various tools and doing some training. They offer all their clients an external CFO involvement, but interestingly enough, marketing and sales and I guess looking at digitization and information technology, it's all been outsourced to specialists. They don't try and do any of that. They'll look at accounting systems and bookkeeping only and payroll systems. The rest, they've said, no, we won't pretend to do that. Now and that would be one of the most profitable regional firms I've come across in 45 years.
Right.
Another firm doing this is a solo practitioner with 4 team members, some of them working part-time. She said, I'd like to be involved in the external CFO role, and has probably a dozen clients that she's doing this with, and consequently doesn't have the capacity to do much tax advisory or compliance work. That's handled by her 4 team members, and they've brought a policy in that said no new clients because we have more than enough work to do. They do have some clients that they may lose due to them retiring and selling their businesses. So they will look at new clients, but based on the client being receptive to the external CFO role, some of the clients have since employed their own internal accountants and the external accountant has let the preparation of budgets and the reporting function be taken on board inside these bigger clients because they can afford them, but they still sit on the advisory board and help facilitate the annual strategic review and then probably quarterly reviews of business improvement progress. So it's really a matter of thinking through, what role do I want to play? If you can't employ enough, if you can't recruit enough experienced team members to help you, maybe you've got to give away some of what you're currently doing in order to develop this specialty.
Andrew, if we remember back to the webinar we watched last year with Adam Hale, the American accountant from Summit.
The virtual CFO offering.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right, the virtual CFO offering. He made the comment that his firm, which had been primarily a tax return preparation firm, now will not accept tax return only clients. They must be offering the virtual CFO service. Yes. And I think he said about a 90% uptake on that. They lost a few, but they were probably the very small ones in any case. And he's claimed that's been a very successful policy, and his employed accountants or contracted accountants are very happy. They've got interesting and challenging work to work on.
Well, that's right. And quite often you have less small work going through, so it's less of a factory with lots of deadline pressure. And if you can lift your prices because you're delivering greater value, you then can take some of the throughput pressure, getting jobs done out of the office and allow team members. For example, in the larger regional firm, young graduates, when they arrive, always sit next to, for a period of time, one of the directors or seniors and learn what they're doing. So we're encouraging them apart from, they might work in the bookkeeping department, they might work in basic tax prep, but they'll always be involved in looking at some of the other specialties and getting a feel for it and thinking through, where would I like to go and what would I like to do? So we're encouraging them from the word go in our internal culture, that you've don't just think about accounting and tax. We want you to be more commercial and understand business. So we'll take them out when we might visit a client. We had a strategic meeting of the senior leadership group, and on our way home, we visited one of the major agricultural clients who were delighted to host 12 of us and show us their 5 profit centres. And we're talking a $40 million turnover operation, livestock and growing feed and transporting, etc. So again, thinking about, if you want to move away from just accounting and tax and compliance, do you have to give some of it away in order to get the capacity to, if you like, vertically integrate and deepen your relationship with your clients and play a different role? So,
Andrew, that client that with the 5 divisions with 40 million turnover, they receiving separate financial accounts for each of those 5 divisions?
Oh yes, we're doing internal transfer pricing. So we might grow grain to feed livestock, but we want to know that's running profitably.
That's right.
And there's an internal transfer price based on what we'd get if we do sell some of it externally as well.
Yeah, and I presume there's key performance indicators or ratios also being prepared for each of those 5 activities.
Yes, well, we want to know the costs of production of grain, and we want to know the yields per acre. So we're looking at that and looking at the trends over time. Of course, seasonality comes into agriculture, and you have bumper years and terrible years, so you've got to interpret it. But yes, it's and then we do that internally in the accounting practice as well. Again, I mentioned earlier using some of the programs such as Power BI. There it is there. Well, we've used that linked into our job costing system. I can walk up to any team member and go, how many hours have you worked this month? How many hours have gone into jobs? What have you invoiced? What's in work in progress? And what have you got to do? It's there. So that's the sort of reporting we're doing internally that allows us then to utilize those tools and that sort of commercial thinking with clients. Yeah. So we're saying culturally to everyone, every person in a professional service firm is a leader of their area of responsibility that's based on the role they play. So we're all leaders, and we all must think about how do we be on time, on budget, on quality, on relationship. That's the outcomes our customers want. So we're asking people who come and work with us to have that degree of independence and to accept that responsibility from the word go. Then they have the confidence to talk with clients about achieving that in the client's business.
Very good.
So
very good.
Called practice what you preach, and we're trying to grow and create advisors. Now, in terms of pricing a job like this, here's an example hot off the press. So I've doctored this a little bit and taken names out, but the practitioner had conversations with the two directors in this group. They had worked with them in another business that they'd managed to sell, so they were cashed up, but then they came up with a new idea for another online business. And what was put on the table was, we'll do your compliance service, we'll help you establish budgets and meet monthly to interpret them, and then we'll sit on the board of advice. Our role is to facilitate the annual strategic review. In other words, what are the trends coming at this business, and hence what's going to be the effect on it? What have we got to do to improve it and de-risk it so we survive the changes coming at us? Who's going to be responsible for driving these changes? So the accountant is facilitating that meeting, and then with the managing director organising quarterly agendas and participating in those meetings. So 4 senior leadership team meetings and 7 other operational meetings, 11,000, and the total was 30. And the client said, yes, please.
Yes.
Paid monthly.
Okay.
So again, we had to, what I'm trying to illustrate is, what are we actually going to do with this client? Let's have the discussions about the role we'll play. Let's then put a proposal together. Let's put a price on it and ask them, are they happy with that? So I'm trying to illustrate, if you want to get out of compliance, create some time and capacity, maybe by getting rid of some of your existing clients. They might be better handled by someone else, because if they can't pay your fees and they're not getting data to you on time and they're causing you grief, the best thing you can do is give them to someone else who might be grateful for that opportunity, because they're younger and starting out. We've sold off some of the parts of our client base that aren't appropriate to our business model anymore, and hence created capacity and then moved into business advisory. And of course, lying behind all of this, Peter, is set up a senior leadership team. The sole practitioner with 4 staff, that's the senior leadership team. We have a strategic review with all those people and quarterly reviews. So the staff are involved with the sole practitioner, doing to ourselves what we do with our clients. And that's
Andrew, can I just interrupt you there? You've strategic review. You were talking to me about that the other day when I was discussing this podcast with you.
Yeah.
On the 8 or 9 firms of various types, of course, they're not all accountants, that you are the chairman of or advisor to.
Yep.
And you've already completed your strategic reviews, I understand, for next financial year. Do you mind just digressing and commenting on that? Because I wonder how many of our listeners are doing that for their clients. It's only early May and you've completed that for next financial year.
Yes, it's a very simple process. Strategic planning is, where are we now? So we look at instead of doing a SWOT, we do a TOWS. What are the trends coming at this business? And what are the opportunities? What are the weaknesses? And what are the strengths we're going to build on? So we've turned SWOT around into TOWS by saying trends are coming at us. So we look at past year's financial performance and analyze that. We look at who are our customers and our products or our services, our competitors. Are there any demographic changes or attitudinal changes or government legislative changes coming at us? So in the situation, trends, opportunities, weaknesses to be fixed, and then strengths to be built on. It's SWOT, but turned around in a different order, Peter.
Okay, very good.
TOWS, TOWS. It's SWOT turned around into a better priority, in my opinion.
Yes,
so,
interesting. And you've done that for each of your clients?
We're talking about
How long did each of
consulting
those
engineers,
sessions,
consulting surveyors and accounting firms and startup tech firms.
how long did those sessions last? Is it a day or
Well, I
longer?
usually I'd send out an opinion questionnaire to the senior leadership team members 2 weeks beforehand and seek their responses. We'd get the financials prepared. That would all be distributed. And then usually we would meet for a day and a half. We get together. A lot of these businesses have several offices around the country. So we'll all turn up on the first night and have a controlled dinner together. We work hard for a day, then we have an uncontrolled dinner together. And then we wrap it up for half a day the next day and go home. So it's a 2-day activity. The doing the prior preparation is important. Gives people time to think, look at the financials, think of the strategic issues, particularly the trends and the opportunities. And thrashing that out and having informal discussion over dinner is very important because outside of the formality of the meeting room, it allows us to attack the issue, not the person, and appreciate a different perspective is different from it's not wrong, and to flesh it out informally over a few drinks and a good dinner. Often we then will come together the next day. So that's a strategic review. So it's on this page here. What are the trends? What are the opportunities? What are the threats and risks? And the strengths to be built on come last. SWOT starts with strengths, and hence your ego gets out of control. This starts with trends. What's coming at us? What opportunities does it bring, and what risks have we got to sort?
Very interesting. And the whole leadership team attend this from each of those kinds?
Yes. I won't...
Not the entire workforce, just the leadership team.
Well, some of them have got 50, 80 people. And some of them have got 8. But yes, so I won't accept a client unless they're prepared to create a senior leadership group, because that's where the next owners may come from, particularly in professional service firms who often sell internally.
Okay.
So they need to sit around the boardroom table and become commercial. Then they become better advisors, of course. So then we go through the scaling up 7 steps. What do we want to look like in 3 to 5 years? Are we happy with our purpose, our focus? Are we happy with our values? Is that creating the right culture in terms of behavior? What are the 2 or 3 things we've got to improve? And then functional responsibilities, who's responsible for HR, recruiting, selection, induction, training, and contracts and administration, and then mentoring and performance improvement, who's responsible for sales and marketing and brand, etc. Some of it may be, we might have subcontracted external specialist advice in some of those areas, particularly marketing and ICT. And then what's going to be our pattern of meetings? So that's really the agenda for this. You asked me, what do we do in this day and a half strategic review? Well, we go through the TOWs, SWOT back to front, trends, opportunities, threats and risks. Then we go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we put budgets on the table and work out who, the pattern of meetings, when are we going to meet to review what we've said we're going to do. Now, accountants can do that with their clients.
Yes.
That's what a board of advice is all about. So where are we now? Where do we want to be, and how are we going to get there? That's really what we've just done in that, utilising that framework. And then, so for those accountants who are caught in a compliance trap or feel that they are, what might you do? How is your working life? Rate it out of 10 for me in terms of enjoyment. Be honest. And if you're not 100% happy, let's do something to fix it. How many hours do you want to work, and what type of work do you want to do? This might mean, if you can't get employees to delegate things to and give to, that maybe you've got to say no to some of your clients or sell them off, give them to someone else who will look after them better than you are, and then learn some new skills. Go and talk to a receptive client. I mean, how did I learn to be an external advisory board specialist, facilitating strategic reviews and quarterly progress? I did one.
Mm.
You know, you don't learn to play netball unless you get out on the court.
That's right.
So I found some receptive clients and said, I'd like to try this. Would it be okay? And I did the first few for free. Interestingly enough, all of them said we'd be happy to pay you a fee for that, and they did so. So it's about your attitude and goal setting and work habits. If you want to do something different, you've got to make some decisions and change.
Yeah.
And I can't do that for you. You've got to do that yourself. So are you happy at the moment? If not, what would you like to do? And could you create some capacity by giving some of your clients, give them to your senior team members, and then go and have a crack at having a conversation. Find a receptive client and ask if you might do a strategic review with them. And then, there's plenty of stuff on the internet that can guide you in how to do this. You've got material in ESS BIZTOOLS.
Yes, we cover all this in ESS BIZTOOLS, and
that's what I thought.
Mm.
So, read, measure what matters. Read, that's about OKRs, objectives and key results, and then it's about communication and feedback. Scaling up is what I talked about. 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson is about attitude management and mental health. And I look at the Daily Stoic, which is a paragraph comes in every day and tells me to extract the digit and get on with it in very pragmatic ways, which I think we all need some encouragement in that direction at times, Peter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I hope that was helpful for your listeners. It's a framework for thinking about, if you're stuck in a trap, what might you do about it? If you can find a receptive client, if you can think about exactly what you're going to offer them and have those conversations, you might be given a crack.
Mm.
Read ESS BIZTOOLS. You've got instructions on all of this in great detail. So I feel for some of my professional colleagues who are really working very hard and struggling to get team members. I know you've got a moral obligation to help your clients, but sometimes letting them go might be the most helpful thing you can do.
For them as well as you.
You've got to help yourself first if you're going to be able to help others.
Yes.
You've got to have the energy to give them in an advisory capacity. And if you're ground down, that's hard to do. So something has to give, and I don't want it to be your health. So this is I know it's a difficult situation to think through, but there were some examples there of firms who are moving in this way, and they have been quite successful, both of which are subscribers to ESS, by the way. I haven't told you who they are, and I will not.
Okay.
They are.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, Andrew, thank you very much for this overview of changing from compliance dominance to business advisory services. As always, you've done a very in-depth review, and hopefully our listeners, accountants and bookkeepers, are going to see the light in lots of ways, and they can stay doing key compliance work if they wish, but there is opportunities to diversify what they're doing in their work. And as you have said previously, and you touched on it a bit today when you talked about when a younger accountant joins them, being mentored by the partner or a senior manager is very important. And we all know that the profession, and like a lot of businesses in Australia, a lot of professions in Australia are having real trouble with talent attraction and retention. I really believe a range of interesting and challenging services, still with the taxation work, most probably for most of those kinds, but not wage earners, will give those younger accountants some interesting and challenging work. But don't do what someone that years ago, Andrew, you knew also, but I did training in his firm for over a year. Every week I'd go down for a day and train and got all his staff ready. But then when all the consulting work started to come in, he wanted to do it all himself.
Yeah.
So then he rang me one day and said, geez, 3 of those people you trained have left. I said, well, they're complaining to me, and I told you 2 weeks ago, you've got to delegate some of this work to them. They've been trained to do it. And that's very important also, I think.
Yes. But it's another attitudinal thing, being willing to teach people by having them sit with you and be your shadow. Yes, it's not 100% productive and or chargeable, but you've got to spend some time developing people's skills in a cross-section of activities. Expecting them to work 50 hours a week, unpaid overtime, doing data entry and other coding and matters. Well, would you do it for long? We've got grads who are happy to do that because they also are preparing budgets using Plan Guru or Fathom. They're doing benchmark comparisons. They're putting stuff into B-Star and doing valuations. They're sitting in on strategic planning meetings. So they accept that the basic accounting, data entry and prep tax work that they do is the basis of the information we use to do these other things, and what they're doing is integral to the success of having that client relationship. So we're saying what you do is important, and you've got to learn that, but here's some other stuff as well from the word go.
Okay. Andrew, well, thank you very much for being with us today. And
pleasure as usual.
We'll talk to you again in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Good to see you, Mel.
Have a great day. Okay,
Bye
goodbye.
now.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.